For over 3,000 years, the pharaohs ruled one of the most powerful civilizations in human history. They built massive pyramids, commanded vast armies, and were worshipped as gods. But despite all their power, their empire eventually fell, and Egypt became part of the Roman Empire. The pharaohs were the rulers of ancient Egypt for nearly 3,000 years, from around 3100 BC to 30 BC. They were not just political leaders, but were also considered divine figures. Egyptians believed the pharaoh was chosen by the gods to rule the land and maintain order in the universe. The era of the pharaohs began around 3100 BC, when a powerful ruler named Narmer, also known as Menes, united two separate regions of Egypt, Upper Egypt in the south and Lower Egypt in the north. Before this time, these two lands were separate kingdoms with different rulers. Narmer successfully united the two lands and became the first pharaoh of a unified Egypt. This marked the beginning of the dynastic period, when Egypt was ruled by a series of royal families known as dynasties. The pharaoh was the highest authority in Egypt. He controlled the government, commanded the army, and served as the chief religious leader. Egyptians believed the pharaoh was the living embodiment of the god Horus and the son of the sun god Ra. One of the most famous periods of Egyptian history was the Old Kingdom, often called the Age of the Pyramids. During this time, pharaohs built enormous pyramids as tombs for themselves. The most famous of these is the Great Pyramid of Giza, built for Pharaoh Khufu around 2560 BC. The pyramids were not only burial places, but also symbols of the pharaoh's power and belief in life after death. Egyptians believed that when a pharaoh died, he would continue his life in another world. Because of this belief, pharaohs were buried with treasures, food, furniture, and valuable objects. However, during the long history of the pharaohs, another important story took place, one that is recorded in the Bible. According to the biblical account in the book of Exodus, the Israelites lived in Egypt for many years and eventually became slaves under a pharaoh who feared their growing population. The Israelites were forced to do hard labor and build cities for Egypt. During this time of suffering, the Bible records that God raised a man named Moses to lead his people out of slavery. Moses confronted Pharaoh and demanded that the Israelites be allowed to leave Egypt. Pharaoh repeatedly refused to release them. According to the biblical narrative, God sent a series of plagues upon Egypt. These included disasters such as rivers turning to blood, swarms of insects, darkness over the land, and other calamities. Finally, after the last plague, Pharaoh allowed the Israelites to leave Egypt. Moses then led them out in what is known as the Exodus. One of the most famous moments in this story is when God parted the Red Sea so the Israelites could escape while Pharaoh's army pursued them. The sea then closed again, stopping the army. This event became one of the most well-known stories in religious history, symbolizing deliverance and freedom. Despite such dramatic moments in their long history, the civilization of the pharaohs continued for many centuries afterward. Egypt remained a powerful kingdom ruled by many dynasties. Several pharaohs became famous for their achievements. Pharaoh Hatshepsut was one of the most successful female rulers in ancient history. Instead of focusing on war, she expanded trade and built impressive temples. Another famous ruler was Akhenaten, who attempted to change Egypt's traditional religion by promoting the worship of a single god called Aten. However, after his death, the old religious traditions quickly returned. Tutankhamun, often called King Tut, became pharaoh when he was about 9 years old. Although he ruled only a short time, his tomb became one of the most famous archaeological discoveries in history when it was found almost untouched in 1922. Another powerful ruler was Ramesses II, often called Ramesses the Great. He ruled for more than 60 years and built enormous temples and monuments throughout Egypt. Over time, however, Egypt began to weaken. Internal struggles, economic difficulties, and political conflicts reduced the power of the pharaohs. At the same time, foreign empires were becoming stronger. Egypt was invaded and controlled by several foreign powers over the centuries, including the Assyrians and the Persians. A major turning point came in 332 BC, when Alexander the Great of Macedonia conquered Egypt. Alexander founded the city of Alexandria, which later became one of the most important cultural and intellectual centers of the ancient world. After Alexander's death, his general Ptolemy took control of Egypt and established the Ptolemaic dynasty. Although these rulers were Greek, they adopted many Egyptian customs and continued to rule as pharaohs. The most famous ruler of this dynasty was Cleopatra VII,